This is not a story about revenge. It's a story about clarity and what happens when a woman stops reacting and starts observing. I used to believe that betrayal announced itself loudly, with screaming, with slammed doors, with obvious signs. That's what movies teach us. That's what people warn us about. But real betrayal is quieter than that. It shows up disguised as routine, as patience, as small changes that feel harmless until they aren't. The day I stopped crying wasn't the day I discovered the truth. It was the day I realized I had been explaining myself to someone who had already decided not to listen. I remember standing in our kitchen, holding my phone, rereading a message he had sent 10 minutes earlier. Running late, don't wait up, simple, ordinary, almost boring, and yet something in me didn't rush to reply this time. I placed the phone face down on the counter and leaned against the sink, staring at my own reflection in the dark glass of the microwave door. I didn't look heartbroken. I looked tired, not tired of loving him, tired of adjusting. For years I had been smoothing my reactions, shrinking my questions, softening my instincts so I wouldn't seem too emotional. He liked calm women, reasonable women, women who trusted, and I had become very good at playing that role. That night, he arrived home after midnight. I was still awake, sitting on the couch with a book I hadn't read in over an hour. "You didn't wait," he said, glancing at the cold dinner still covered on the table. "I ate earlier," I replied calmly. He nodded, relieved. Relief always came first with him. Explanations came later, if at all. He kissed my forehead, a habit, quick, automatic. Then he went to shower. I listened to the water running and felt something strange happen inside me. Not pain, distance. I stood up, walked to our bedroom and opened the drawer where he always left his watch, his wallet, his keys. Everything was there, perfectly arranged. A man with nothing to hide is very careful with his belongings. That was the moment I understood something important. If I confronted him now, he would deny. If I cried, he would comfort. If I accused, he would gaslight. And I would walk away confused instead of informed. So I didn't confront. I sat on the edge of the bed and took out a notebook I hadn't used in years. Blank pages. I wrote the date at the top. And underneath it, one sentence. Pay attention. That was it. No accusations, no tears, no drama, just observation. Over the following days, I noticed how often he mentioned the same name casually, as if repetition could make it invisible. How his phone never left his side, not even in the shower. How his compliments had shifted from personal to generic. "You look nice," instead of "that dress makes you glow." Small things, the kind of details women are told to ignore so they don't ruin a good thing. But I wasn't trying to ruin anything. I was trying to understand it. One evening, while he was asleep beside me, his phone buzzed softly on the nightstand. I didn't grab it. I didn't panic. I didn't shake him awake demanding answers. I just noted the time, 2:14 a.m., and the way his body turned slightly toward the phone, instinctively. Muscle memory. I wrote it down in the morning, not because I needed proof yet, but because I was done guessing. He thought I would cry when the truth arrived. What he didn't realize was that I had already stopped crying days before, and when a woman stops crying, something far more dangerous replaces the tears. Clarity. Patterns don't appear all at once. They reveal themselves slowly, like a picture sharpening after being out of focus for too long. For years, I had been trained to look for excuses instead. Everyone around me had plenty of them ready. "He's just stressed. He works a lot. Men get distracted sometimes. You're overthinking." I had repeated those lines myself, like protective spells. But once I stopped reacting emotionally, something curious happened. I started seeing repetition, and repetition is truth wearing different clothes. He began coming home later on Tuesdays, always Tuesdays. At first I told myself it was meetings, then deadlines, then traffic, but traffic doesn't wear cologne. One night, as he leaned in to kiss me, I noticed it, not his usual scent, something sweeter, lighter, new. I smiled, not because it amused me, but because it confirmed something. I wrote it down. Tuesdays, new scent, no explanation. The notebook had become my quiet companion, not a weapon, a mirror. I didn't change my behavior. That was important. I still laughed at his jokes, still asked about his day, still listened attentively. Men relax when they believe nothing has changed, and relaxed people make mistakes. He started telling the same story twice, forgetting which version he had already shared with me. Once, he said he had dinner with co-workers. A week later, the same dinner happened again. Same restaurant, same people, same jokes. Even the same complaint about the waiter. Too perfect. I nodded, smiling politely, while mentally underlining the moment. Patterns. I noticed how his phone tilted slightly away from me when he answered messages, how he suddenly cared more about his appearance for ordinary days. New shirts, new shoes, new attention to details he had ignored for years. I complimented him. Men crave admiration even when they don't deserve it. One evening I suggested we plan a weekend getaway. He hesitated, just for half a second. But half a second is enough when you're watching closely. Maybe next month, he said. Things are a bit busy right now. Busy with whom? I didn't ask, I wrote it down. Avoids future plans. That night, while brushing my teeth, I looked at myself in the mirror and felt something unexpected. Pride. Not because I was being clever, but because I was no longer betraying myself. I realized how often I had ignored my instincts in the name of peace. How many times I had chosen comfort over clarity. But clarity, once it arrives, doesn't ask permission to stay. A few days later, I ran into someone I hadn't seen in years, a woman who worked in the same building as him. We exchanged polite greetings. She mentioned his name casually. "Oh, I see him often," she said. "Always looks like he's in a hurry." I raised an eyebrow. "In a hurry?" "Yes, especially when he's with... Well," she stopped herself. I smiled softly. "With who?" She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "I might be mistaken," she said quickly. "Never mind." I nodded. Grateful. People reveal more when they believe they've said too much. That night, he came home unusually cheerful. Too cheerful. He hugged me from behind while I cooked dinner, resting his chin on my shoulder. "You've been different lately," he said lightly. "Calmer." I smiled again. "Is that bad?" "No," he replied. "It's nice. Nice. Calm women are nice. Observant women are dangerous." I noticed how he began sharing selective honesty. Little confessions designed to build trust. "I forgot to call you earlier. I stayed out longer than planned. I should have told you." Each admission carefully chosen to make him seem transparent. But transparency isn't about what you say. It's about what you don't avoid. And he was avoiding eye contact when he spoke about certain things, avoiding names, avoiding details, avoiding the future. I wasn't angry. Anger clouds judgment. I was curious. Curiosity sharpens it. One afternoon, while folding laundry, I found a receipt in his pocket. A cafe I had never been to. 2 coffees, 2 pastries. Mid-afternoon, not his usual routine. I held the receipt between my fingers and felt something settle inside me. Not heartbreak, confirmation. I placed the receipt inside my notebook and wrote beside it, 2 coffees, always 2. That's when I understood something crucial. This wasn't about discovering the betrayal. I already knew. This was about understanding the shape of it, the timing, the habits, the carelessness. Because the truth isn't just what happens. It's how people behave when they believe they're safe. And he felt very safe. That night, as we sat on opposite ends of the couch, he casually mentioned a new colleague, a woman. "She's efficient," he said. I didn't react. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. The pattern wasn't just in his actions. It was in his confidence. He believed he was in control, and control makes people sloppy. I closed my notebook later that evening and realized something important. I no longer needed proof to confront him. I needed timing, because the most satisfying victories don't come from exposure. They come from precision, and precision requires patience. He thought I was still trying to understand him. What he didn't know was that I was already planning what understanding would cost him. Comfort is dangerous. Not the kind that comes from love or safety, but the kind that grows when someone believes they won't be questioned. He reached that stage quietly. I noticed it in the way his shoulders relaxed around me, in how his stories became less rehearsed, in how he stopped checking himself mid-sentence. Comfort makes people careless. He started leaving his phone face up on the table. Not unlocked, never that, but no longer hidden. A performance of trust. He joked more, laughed louder, acted as if nothing in his world required caution anymore. That's when I understood something important. He thought I had accepted the new version of him, the distracted one, the busy one, the slightly distant but still affectionate partner. Men often confuse silence with acceptance. They mistake observation for ignorance. One evening we attended a small gathering at a friend's place. Nothing fancy, just wine, conversation, familiar faces. He stayed close to me the entire night, too close. The kind of closeness that isn't affection, it's camouflage. At some point, a woman joined our conversation. Elegant, confident, the type who takes up space without asking permission. She greeted him first, not warmly, not coldly, precisely. I watched the interaction carefully, the half-second pause before he introduced me, the way her eyes scanned me quickly, assessing, not judging, the almost invisible nod she gave him before stepping away. I smiled politely the entire time. Inside, something clicked into place. She wasn't a stranger, she was aware. Later that night on the drive home, he talked more than usual, filled the silence with unnecessary details, stories that led nowhere, jokes that landed flat, nervous energy disguised as charm. I let him talk, because people reveal themselves when they're trying too hard. "You seemed quiet tonight," he said eventually. "Just listening," I replied. He glanced at me briefly, then back at the road. "I like that," he said. "You're easy. Easy." That word lingered in the car long after he said it. Easy women are predictable. Easy women don't ask questions. Easy women don't change the ending. I went to bed early that night, not because I was tired, because I wanted him alone with his thoughts. In the days that followed, he became bolder, not openly, but subtly. He stopped over-explaining, stopped apologizing for small things, stopped pretending to feel guilty. Comfort had settled in, and with it came entitlement. He cancelled plans last minute without much concern, checked messages during dinner without hiding it, started assuming I would adjust. And I did, outwardly. Inwardly, I was counting. One afternoon, I overheard him on the phone in the other room. His voice was lower, softer, not the tone he used with friends, not the tone he used with colleagues, a tone reserved for intimacy. I didn't press my ear to the door. I didn't strain to hear words. I didn't need to. Tone tells the story words try to hide. Later, when he noticed me in the hallway, he ended the call quickly. "Work stuff," he said casually. I nodded. Work had become a very flexible concept in his life. That night, I opened my notebook again. The pages were no longer blank observations. They were sequences, timelines, connections, patterns layered over patterns. This wasn't chaos, it was structure, and structure can be dismantled. I realized then that he wasn't cheating because something was missing. He was cheating because something was available. Opportunity. And opportunity thrives when consequences feel distant. I started testing small things. Nothing dramatic. I changed my schedule slightly, came home earlier than usual one day, later another. Watched how quickly he adapted, too quickly, as if he had already rehearsed alternative versions of his day. One evening I asked casually, "Do you still go to that cafe near your office?" He hesitated, just a fraction. "Not really," he said. "Why?" "No reason," I replied. "I passed by it today." He nodded, uninterested. But later that night, I noticed something new. A message notification flashed briefly on his phone screen before disappearing. Just a name, not saved. That told me everything. People save what they want to keep. They hide what they plan to lose. I slept peacefully that night. Not because I trusted him, but because I trusted myself. Comfort had made him sloppy, and sloppiness always leaves traces. The next morning, while he showered, I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. I felt calm, centered, ready. This wasn't about catching him. It was about deciding what I wanted to do with the information I already had. Because knowledge isn't power until you choose how to use it. And I had reached the stage where choice was no longer theoretical. He thought comfort meant safety. What it really meant was that he had stopped protecting himself. And when people stop protecting themselves, they hand you the advantage without realizing it. I closed my notebook and smiled softly. The hardest part was over. From now on, it would just be execution. Confrontation is overrated. It gives the other person a chance to prepare, to deny, to rewrite the story while you're still emotional. I didn't want a conversation. I wanted a moment. So I stopped thinking like someone who needed answers and started thinking like someone who already had them. The first thing I did was nothing. That sounds simple, but it's not. Doing nothing when you know the truth requires discipline. It means not flinching, not testing him with loaded questions, not fishing for confessions that will only come wrapped in excuses. Instead, I focused on control. Control of timing, control of atmosphere, control of myself. I began adjusting the environment around us. Small things. I became lighter, more relaxed, less attentive to details that used to bother me. If he came home late, I smiled and said, "Hope it was productive." If he cancelled plans, I shrugged and replied, "Another time." Men notice indifference faster than anger. Anger still means you care. Indifference makes them curious. He started watching me more closely, not suspiciously, not yet, but with interest. "You seem different," he said one morning while pouring coffee. "So do you," I replied pleasantly. He laughed, assuming it was a compliment. I let him believe that. At the same time, I started preparing quietly. I reorganized my schedule, made sure my finances were in order, reviewed things I had ignored for years because I trusted the relationship to be permanent. Trust can make you lazy. Clarity makes you precise. One afternoon, I booked a reservation. Not a trap, not a dramatic reveal. Just a setting, a place he liked, a place that felt familiar and safe to him. People are more honest in environments where they feel comfortable. I didn't tell him right away. I waited. A few days later, I mentioned it casually. "I made dinner plans for Friday," I said, "just us." He smiled, relieved. "Good," he said. "We haven't done that in a while." Exactly. In the meantime, I sharpened my awareness. I noticed how often he checked his phone that week, more than usual. I noticed how he mentioned work more frequently, as if repetition would normalize absence. I noticed how he didn't ask questions about my day anymore. People stop asking when they believe they already know the answers. Friday arrived calmly. I dressed simply, nothing dramatic, nothing designed to impress. Confidence doesn't need decoration. At the restaurant, he seemed relaxed, almost cheerful. He ordered wine without asking my preference. A small thing, a telling one. We talked about neutral topics, work, travel ideas he didn't intend to plan, a future that sounded vague and distant. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I didn't challenge. Halfway through dinner, his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen instinctively, just for a second. Then he turned it face down, too late. I'd already seen his expression shift, not panic, recognition. I smiled. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah," he replied quickly. "Just something I'll handle later." I nodded. Later had become his favorite word. The conversation continued, but something had changed. He was less present, his answers shorter, his attention divided. That's when I decided it was time to begin. Not the confrontation, the framing. "Do you remember when we first moved in together?" I asked casually. He seemed surprised. "Of course," he said. "Why?" "I was thinking about how much we trusted each other back then." He smiled, nostalgic. "We still do," he said. I met his eyes. Do we? The question hung between us. Not accusatory, not emotional, curious. He hesitated, just enough. Of course, he repeated, less confidently this time. I didn't push. Instead, I leaned back slightly and took a sip of wine. It's interesting, I said lightly, how trust changes shape over time. He nodded, unsure where I was going. I let the silence stretch. Silence does the work, words can't. I think trust, I continued, is less about what people say and more about what they assume they can get away with. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. There it was. Not guilt, awareness. He knew I wasn't clueless anymore, but he didn't know how much I knew. And uncertainty makes people uncomfortable. He changed the subject quickly, asked about my plans for the weekend. I answered vaguely. Just some things I've been meaning to take care of. That was true, very true. We finished dinner politely. He paid the bill, held the door, played his role perfectly, but something had shifted permanently. In the car ride home, he was quiet. I didn't fill the silence. I stared out the window, calm, composed. At home, he kissed me goodnight and went to bed almost immediately. I stayed awake, not restless, focused. That night, I wrote one final sentence in my notebook. He knows something has changed. He just doesn't know what. And that was exactly where I wanted him. Because the stage was set, the lights were on, and soon the truth wouldn't need to be exposed. It would reveal itself. The truth rarely arrives like a storm. Most of the time, it walks in quietly, already expected, already prepared for. That's why I didn't feel shock when it finally surfaced. What surprised me was his confidence, the way he carried himself, as if the outcome were already decided, as if reality was something he could negotiate. It happened on an ordinary afternoon. No dramatic timing, no special occasion, just a moment that slipped through the cracks of routine. I came home earlier than usual, not intentionally, not strategically, just earlier. The apartment was quiet, too quiet. I set my bag down slowly, listening. That's when I heard voices. Not loud, not urgent, comfortable, familiar in a way that didn't belong to me. I stood still, not frozen, anchored. I didn't rush forward, I didn't retreat. I observed. Her laugh came first, soft, confident, unafraid. The kind of laugh someone has when they believe they're welcome. I walked toward the living room calmly. They were sitting close, not touching, not hiding, as if hiding were no longer necessary. He looked up first. Surprise flickered across his face, quickly replaced by something else. Relief, that's what unsettled me. Not guilt, not fear, relief. "You're home early," he said. I smiled. "So are you." She stood up politely, too politely. "I should go," she said, glancing between us. "No," he replied immediately. "It's fine, fine." That word again. He turned to me. "This is..." He hesitated. "A colleague." I looked at her. Really looked. She was composed, well-dressed, comfortable in my space. She smiled faintly. "We've heard a lot about each other," she said. I nodded. "I'm sure." Silence settled around us. Not heavy, exposed. "I didn't plan for this," he said eventually. "That was interesting. Not I'm sorry, not I messed up, just logistics." I walked to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. My hands were steady. "I'm guessing this isn't the part where you deny anything," I said calmly. He exhaled. "No." At least he knew when denial was pointless. She shifted awkwardly. "I really should..." "Please," I said gently, interrupting her. "Sit. I'm not angry." And that was true. Anger had already passed through me days ago. This was something else. He watched me carefully, trying to read my reaction, trying to calculate the damage. "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "Of course not. No one ever means to hurt someone they assume will absorb the impact." "When did this start?" I asked. He hesitated. She answered instead. "About a year ago." "A year." I nodded slowly. A year explained a lot. The comfort, the entitlement, the confidence. He shot her a look, but it was too late. Interesting how quickly loyalty shifts when pressure enters the room. "You said you were separated," she added defensively. I smiled again. "That explains why you're sitting on my couch." She stiffened. He cleared his throat. "It's complicated," he said. "No," I replied. "It's not." They both looked at me. I continued, voice steady. "It's simple. You made choices. You assumed I wouldn't notice, and you assumed that if I did, I'd fall apart." He frowned. "I didn't think you'd cry?" I finished for him. Silence. "I stopped crying a long time ago," I said. "That's when I saw it. Not regret, not remorse, concern. Concern for himself, for his image, for his comfort, for how this would inconvenience him." "You're being very calm," he said cautiously. "I know," I replied. "That usually scares people." She stood up abruptly. "I don't want to be part of this," she said. "I was told." "You were told what you needed to hear," I said gently. "That doesn't make you innocent, but it does make you replaceable." Her mouth opened slightly. He stiffened. "That's unnecessary," he said. I turned to him. "No. What was unnecessary was lying to two women and assuming neither would compare notes." He fell silent. That was the first time I saw uncertainty replace confidence. I took a sip of water. "You can stay," I said to her, "or you can leave. That's your choice." She looked at him. He didn't look back. That told her everything. She grabbed her bag. "I didn't know," she muttered. "Now you do," I replied. She left without another word. The door closed quietly behind her. He remained standing, hands in his pockets. "I didn't think you'd handle it like this," he admitted. "I know," I said. "That's been your biggest mistake." He sat down heavily. "So, what now?" There it was. The assumption that this was a negotiation, that there would be tears, ultimatums, bargaining. I met his eyes. "What happens next," I said calmly, "is entirely up to me." That was the moment his confidence finally cracked. Because he realized something he had never considered. The truth didn't shock me, but my composure terrified him. He talked as if words could rearrange reality. That was the most fascinating part. Once the door closed behind her, he straightened his posture, as though this were a meeting he could still win. "I can explain," he said. "I'm sure you can," I replied, sitting down across from him. "You've had a lot of practice." That made him pause, not because it hurt, because it was accurate. He began carefully, like someone walking across thin ice. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. Nothing ever is, when you assume control without accountability." He spoke about distance, about routine, about how relationships change. All familiar arguments. Men recycle them the way they recycle apologies. I listened attentively, not because I needed to hear it, but because I wanted to see which version of himself he would choose. The victim, the confused man, the misunderstood one. He tried all three. "I didn't plan to fall for her." I felt lonely. "I didn't think you noticed." That one made me smile. "Oh, I noticed," I said calmly. "I just didn't interrupt." He blinked. "I thought you trusted me." "I did," I replied, "until I trusted myself more." He leaned forward. "We can fix this," he said. "It doesn't have to end like this." End. He still thought this was about saving something. I crossed my legs slowly, unhurried. "Tell me something," I said. "When you imagined this moment, how did you picture me?" He hesitated. "I don't know." I raised an eyebrow. "Try." He exhaled. "Upset," he admitted. "Angry, hurt, crying," I added. He nodded reluctantly. "There it is," I said softly. "That's where you miscalculated." His jaw tightened. "You're being cold." "No," I corrected. "I'm being precise." I explained nothing further. "People who underestimate you don't deserve full explanations." He continued talking. "Apologies now, promises next." "I'll end it," he said quickly. "Right now if you want." I laughed. Not loudly, not mockingly, just a quiet exhale of amusement. "That offer," I said, "is about 6 months too late." His eyes searched my face. "You already decided," he realized. "Yes." "When?" I leaned back. "When I stopped crying." Silence filled the room again. This time, it worked in my favor. "You're not even asking how I feel," he said defensively. "I know how you feel," I replied. "You feel exposed." "That's not—" "It is," I said. "You don't feel guilty for what you did. You feel uncomfortable that I'm not reacting the way you expected." That landed. He stood up, pacing. "So, what do you want?" he asked. frustration creeping in. I watched him move around the room that used to feel shared. What did I want? Not revenge, not apologies, not closure in the dramatic sense. I wanted alignment. I want honesty, I said. He stopped. I'm being honest. I smiled again. No, you're being careful. Honesty doesn't negotiate tone. It stands on its own. I stood up as well. This relationship, I continued, worked for you because you believed I would absorb discomfort so you wouldn't have to. That's not fair. It's accurate, I said. He sighed heavily. You're acting like you're above this. I am, I replied simply. That's the difference. That was when the explanation stopped. He sat back down, defeated, in a way he didn't yet understand. I didn't think you were capable of this, he said quietly. Of what? Walking away without making a scene. I looked at him calmly. You never asked what I was capable of. I grabbed my notebook from the table and placed it gently in front of him. He frowned. What's that? A record, I said, of everything you assumed I wouldn't notice. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Just its presence was enough. You were very confident, I continued. That confidence made you predictable. He swallowed. I never meant to underestimate you. But you did, I replied. And now you're paying for that mistake. He looked up at me. So this is it? I considered the question. This, I said, is the moment you realize I was never behind you or beneath you. I picked up my bag. I was simply watching. I walked toward the bedroom, leaving him alone with his thoughts. Behind me, I heard his voice one last time. You're not giving me another chance. I paused at the doorway. No, I said calmly, I'm giving myself one. And that was the most honest explanation I had offered all night. People often confuse revenge with victory. They imagine loud endings, public humiliation, a final scene designed to hurt as much as possible. But revenge still ties you to the person who wronged you. Freedom doesn't. I didn't need him to suffer. I needed him irrelevant. The morning after our conversation, I woke up early. Not anxious, not restless, clear. The apartment felt different already, lighter, as if it had been waiting for this decision. He was still asleep when I got out of bed. For a moment, I watched him. Not with anger, not with sadness, with curiosity. This was the man who had believed he could live two lives without consequence. The man who had assumed I would crumble when the truth surfaced. The man who had never considered that silence could be preparation. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. Normal routines are grounding when you're closing a chapter. When he finally appeared, his face looked tired. He hadn't slept well. I had. We should talk, he said cautiously. I nodded. We already did. He sat across from me, hands wrapped around a mug he hadn't filled. I don't know where I stand, he admitted. That was honest. For the first time, I replied, neither do I. He frowned. What does that mean? It means, I said calmly, that your position in my life is no longer fixed. He waited. Men often expect explanations to soften what's coming. I didn't offer one. I'm moving out, I said simply. His eyes widened. When? Soon. How soon? Soon enough that it won't drag. He leaned back, stunned. You're serious. I stopped being anything else a while ago. Silence settled between us again. Not heavy, final. What about us? He asked quietly. I considered the question. There is no us that includes dishonesty, I replied, and there is no version of me that accepts less than clarity. He ran a hand through his hair. I never thought you'd leave like this. That's because, I said, you never thought I'd leave at all. Over the next few days, I moved with efficiency. No dramatics, no late-night conversations, no emotional bargaining. I packed only what mattered. Not objects, identity, clothes that felt like me, books I loved. Things chosen, not accumulated. He watched from a distance, unsure how to engage. Men struggle when there's no role to play, no villain to fight, no victim to rescue. One afternoon he asked, is there someone else? I smiled faintly. No. That seemed to bother him more than a yes would have. You're doing this for yourself, he realized. Yes, I said. That's usually how freedom works. On my last night in the apartment, I stood in the doorway and looked back once. not nostalgically. Accurately, this place had held love once, then habit, then illusion. It deserved honesty too. "I hope you find what you're looking for," he said quietly. "I already did," I replied. The door closed behind me without ceremony. Outside, the city felt wide, unapologetic, full of motion and possibility. I didn't feel victorious. I felt unburdened. In the days that followed, I noticed subtle changes, how my breathing slowed, how my shoulders relaxed, how I stopped replaying conversations in my head. Peace is the clearest sign you made the right decision. Friends asked questions. I gave simple answers. He wasn't who I thought he was. I chose myself. No details. Details keep you tethered. One evening, while unpacking boxes in my new place, my phone buzzed. A message from him. I didn't realize what I had until it was gone. I read it once. Then I placed the phone face down and continued unpacking. Understanding after loss is common. It just isn't useful. Freedom doesn't need acknowledgement, it needs space. As I sat on the floor later, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes, I felt something settle into place. Not closure, alignment. I wasn't angry, I wasn't bitter, I wasn't triumphant, I was intact. And that, I realized, was the outcome he never anticipated. He thought I would cry. Instead, I chose myself, and that choice changed everything. He believed the ending was simple. Woman discovers betrayal. Woman leaves. Man reflects. That's how these stories usually go. Neat, contained, forgettable. What he never understood was that the real ending doesn't happen when you walk away. It happens in what you build afterward. Weeks passed, then months. My life didn't transform overnight into something cinematic or dramatic. It became quieter, more intentional. And that was the real luxury. I found a rhythm that belonged only to me. Mornings without tension, evenings without explanations, decisions without negotiation. I didn't post inspirational quotes. I didn't announce my freedom. I lived it. That silence unsettled him more than any confrontation ever could. We crossed paths once, unexpectedly, at a small cafe. The same one from the receipt. 2 coffees, only this time one was mine. He froze when he saw me. I didn't. I looked, well, calm, grounded, unrushed. "Hi," he said awkwardly. "Hi," I replied, smiling politely. No bitterness, no nostalgia, just acknowledgement. He searched my face for something, regret perhaps, or longing. He found neither. "You seem good," he said. "I am," I replied simply. That was the moment he realized something important. I hadn't escaped my life. I had upgraded it. We spoke for a few minutes. Surface-level conversation. Weather, work, nothing personal. When I stood up to leave, he hesitated. "I really did lose you," he said quietly. I paused. "Yes," I replied. "You did. Not cruel, not triumphant. Accurate." As I walked away, I felt no urge to look back. People only look back when they doubt their direction. Later that evening, I reflected on how differently things could have unfolded. If I had cried when he expected me to, if I had screamed, if I had begged, I would have given him the role he had rehearsed for. Instead, I chose something else. Agency, clarity, self-respect. The truth is, I didn't win because he lost. I won because I refused to lose myself. That's the part people don't talk about enough. Victory doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it looks like peace. And peace is the most disorienting outcome for someone who thought they controlled the narrative. He thought my silence meant weakness. He thought my calm meant acceptance. He thought my restraint meant fear. What it really meant was that I was writing a different ending. One where I wasn't reacting anymore. One where I was choosing. One where I no longer needed him to understand. Because I finally understood myself. He thought I would cry. I took notes. And then I moved on. This story isn't about betrayal. It's about what happens when a woman stops explaining herself to someone who already decided not to listen. It's about choosing dignity over drama, clarity over chaos, and freedom over familiarity. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe to Stories We Tell, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us keep creating stories about love, forgiveness, and second chances, because stories that touch the heart deserve to be told and remembered. Thank you for being here.